Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Now, I recently did a video on the best poisoners in the game, what I consider to be the best poisoners in this game, top 10 for Clan Boss. And I recorded that video, and then, I don't know, I thought about it, and went to myself, I know exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of people in the comments that are going to be talking about other champions that I didn't list that are just straight poisoners. That's really all they do. And I thought I was clear. Hey, these are not the champions that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about people that are going to be best for Clan Boss because they bring so much else. But I do know some of you out there are going to be like, but those aren't the best poisoners. So I figured what I would do is give you a bonus video talking about champions that I didn't list in that are pure poisoners. This is what they do. Their job is to bring you poisons, and I will give you what I consider the top 10 of those champions that I didn't already name, right? So there's champions that I named in the previous video like Draco or Calvalax that are pure poisoners and are really good at it, but they also do other things, Dark Kale, for example, that, I'm not gonna rename and go over again here. But there are a bunch of champions that I didn't list in there. And so I've got 10 of those ranked up in order that I think is going to be best. And obviously, there's a lot of flexibility with some of them. Some of them are about as good as some of the other ones, right? But that's what we're going to go over today. And I think what we're going to do, though, is actually start off with a champion that many people are going to say belongs on this list, and I am emphatically going to say doesn't. And because they need very specific things to make work. And so what I would like to do is I'm going to start talking about Venomage. This is a champion that people absolutely love, and honestly, I don't understand why. I do not think this champion is as good as people think they are. Now, they can be good. Venomage can be really good, but you have to pair with Vizier. I don't understand how you really say this is a champion without pairing him with another incredible poisoner or with somebody like Vizier that can just extend them infinitely. And so let me break down exactly why. This A1 skill is really all about this kit, where it's a double hit attack and each one has a chance of activating up to 2 poison debuffs on the target. That means every duration is an activation, right? So if I have 2 poisons up for 2 turns each, and this procs on both attacks, those poisons will be gone, right? If it procs once, then each one would then have a 1 turn duration left on it. That's great. I mean, it's extra damage. I love that, right? Each one of those poisons is basically 50,000 damage on Ultra Nightmare. So yeah, if I can activate 2 of them, that's fantastic. The thing is, there's the thing about poisons. They're going to activate anyway when the clan boss takes their turn. So unless you are overfilling the debuff bar, it's pretty useless as a skill because you're not getting extra damage. You're just getting the damage a little bit sooner. Not really helpful in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean he's a useless champion. He does bring stuff to the table, including poisons. His A3 brings 2 poison debuffs for 2 turns, right? When booked, 100% yes. That's great. That's great, right? His A2 has a decreased attack ability, right? Which is also great. Or decreased defense and can place decreased attack if there's poisons up. That's great. That's fantastic, right? There's some really cool stuff about his kit. But unless you're really overfilling the debuff bar, there's not a lot there, in my opinion. So, I'll let you guys in the comments debate me on that. But I really think by himself, Venomage is not that great of a champion. You really have to pair it with a Vizier, or you have to pair him with another incredible poisoner that you'll see on this list here. I think that's the only way that Venomage is actually any good. But that's my bonus champion for you guys. Let's get into that actual top 10. Before we do, let me just remind you guys, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one of these videos and watch me poop all over a champion like Venomage. Definitely, it's one of the easiest ways to help support the channel and the work that I do. So if you like it, support me, hit that subscribe button, and I'll get you more of these videos. That said, let's go look at the top 10. So number 10 on this list is actually one of the starter champions, and this is why he's considered the best starter champion in this game, and I'm talking about Kayle, of course. Kayle brings a lot of poisons to the table, which makes him very good for Clan Boss, even into the early parts of Ultra Nightmare. His A3 is the big one, right? Gets a 4-hit attack, each one with a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. That's up to 4 poisons. I mean, obviously that's not going to be typical in all the time, but that can be really, really helpful for you. And as a rare champion, as a starter champion, it's very available to be able to do that. In addition to that, the A1 will place the small poison debuff. So between the two of them can put up a lot of poisons on your team. If you don't have better poison options, and that was me for a long time personally, he can be a really good poison champion for your team. Now, while Kayle is definitely number 10 on my list, the next 4 champions, number 9, 8, 7, and 6, I feel are all fairly interchangeable based off of, what you prefer, what champions you have, what kind of speed tune you're running. But we're going to start off with number 9, and it's actually a legendary champion. I'm talking about Richtof the Bold. He doesn't get a lot of love in this game. He's not a great champion for any real parts of this game, especially Clan Boss, but he does bring some utility here. Now, his poisons are on his A2 skill. It's a triple hit attack, each one placing a poison debuff. That's really good. 3 poisons placing it. It is on a 3-turn cooldown when fully booked, so that can be really useful for you. It is on 2-turn duration, so not really great, but pretty solid. His A1's nothing special, right? It's just an AoE, it's just attack, nothing great there. But his A3 is pretty nice as well, because it does extra critical damage for each poison debuff on the target. So that can be a pretty significant damage boost there as a single skill. It's not enough to make it worth it for me personally, and it is on a 4-turn cooldown. I would generally, for Clan Boss, prefer prioritizing the poisons to make sure that we're fully debuffing the Clan Boss, but this skill does hit hard and can be a viable alternative for you if you don't have any other poisoners on your team. Now, this next champion is somebody that, I mean, back in the day was considered one of the best poisoners in the game and has since been easily surpassed, but I'm talking about Eothar, and Eothar is still a really, really good champion in this game. He's somebody that I actually recommend a lot for using in dungeon runs, as he's great, and he's great for teams like the unkillable teams in general due to his aura, which is actually an attack in all battles aura, which is pretty nice. But his big thing is his A2 skill. This is a 4-attack hit with each one placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. Really nice skill. Definitely something worth looking at and can be viable. And it does book down to a 3-turn cooldown, as well as his A3 books down to a 3-turn cooldown. And of course, he has a nice A1 that actually can steal a debuff from the target. Now, one of the cool things about Eothar, all of his skills can hit pretty hard. You can turn off his A3 and then run him in Giant Slayer, because he's got a double hit on his A1 and a 4 hit on his A2, and that can be really, really effective. He's a very solid damage dealer for Clan Boss. There's some negatives with this kit, right? Most importantly, his base speed of only 92 can be really rough. Also, the duration of those poisons, only 2 turns. But he is actually one of the better poisoners in Clan Boss, and a really good option, especially if you're running a team like a budget unkillable that, maybe you don't have access to a lot of legendary champions, but Eothar can be really, really nice option there. And even teams like a double man-eater, where he has that really nice attack aura, can be a really great option for you. And then we get to a champion that I have a very soft spot for. In my heart, I really like this champion a lot. I think he's a really cool kit. And I'm talking about Taurus in the Skinwalker faction. Now, typically we use him a lot for poison explosion teams, for dungeons, but I think he's actually very viable for Clan Boss teams as well. A little bit tricky, though, due to his kit, and you have to pay attention to that. Now, one of the primary things that he has is his poison ability, right? His A3 skill, excuse me. It's a 4-hit attack. I'm sorry, it's not an attack. That's the negative part. But it places 4 poison debuffs on the Clan Boss for 2 turns. So that's great just off the jump. In addition to that, we'll place an unkillable buff on himself. Now, one of the hard parts about him is he receives damage equal to 99% of the current HP. Basically goes down to 1% HP, or like 1 hit point, basically. But he does place an unkillable buff on himself for 2 turns. So it doesn't make him unviable. The hard part is then he has to heal himself back up from that deficit, and if you're running a traditional team. Where we see him more often, though, are unkillable teams, and he can be a really good stun target because of that, especially now that we have prioritization. You do need a certain amount of HP for the clan boss to think you're a viable target when you have unkillable buff on yourself. So because we can actually prioritize the skills now, we don't have to, do some crazy, machinations with the, turn order or pain keepers and things like that. He can be an excellent stun target for you with that unkillable buff that he puts on himself. The key is that his next attack be something that heals him up. And that's the big part. Thankfully, he has that in his kit on his A1, where he heals 20% of the damage inflicted if the target has a poison debuff. So he can be, I think very viable for clan boss, specifically with unkillable teams. His A2 also brings a weaken debuff. And so that's a really nice little bonus. Not only does he bring those poisons, but he brings weaken as well. As long as you keep him healthy enough with an unkillable team, he can be very viable. And this next champion is a favorite of mine, especially after rework with her kit. I think she's really good, especially as a stun target for the budget unkillable. This is where I think she absolutely shines as a champion, and I'm talking about Rowan. Now, Rowan has one of the worst base defenses in this game, under 700. Definitely not great for traditional teams, but when you're talking about unkillable teams, she can be really, really good. She's got, 3 skills. Not all of them are going to be viable, but one that is her A3 skill here. On a 3-turn cooldown when booked, 100% chance a 4-hit attack will land a poison debuff for 2 turns on each of those. So that's equivalent to Aethar. It's equivalent to Taurus. All 3 of those are pretty interchangeable in my opinion. And then on her A2 here is a triple attack. Now that's for a stun, but we don't care about that. The thing is, we've already got a 4-attack skill, a 3-attack skill. Guess what she'd be great in? Giant Slayer, of course. Really good with that. And then her A1 is a single hit attack with peel reduction. That is definitely not the skill that we're most interested in. It's the other 2. And so building her with Giant Slayer, I think she can be a really good champion. On top of that, she does do decent damage if you build her attack and crit damage up. So a very viable champion. Now, is she better than Aethar? Is she better than Taurus? Again, I think all 3 of them are fairly equivalent, and just depends on what you need. She's a void champion. That can be really useful. Aethar has that aura, which can be really useful. Taurus has that unkillable ability and that weaken ability, which can be useful. It just depends on what you need them for on your particular team. And then we get into the top 5, starting with Frozen Banshee. She's obviously, well loved in the community, being a rare champion that is one of the best poisoners in this game, hands down. And it comes down to her skills, right? So her A1 here will place 2, it's a double hit attack, and each one, when fully booked, will place 2 poisons on the clan boss if poison sensitivity is up. So if you can keep poison sensitivity up 100% of the time, this A1 is going to do crazy work for you. She's exceptionally good in counterattack teams. Without counterattack, and this is why she only gets up to number 5, she's okay. Not great, but pretty good, right? I would not say any better than the previous champions we've named. And that's because you're not going to get as many opportunities to place those poisons. But with counterattack, all of a sudden we're getting 8 poisons per round against a clan boss. A really effective champion. And her A3, of course, is the one that places that poison sensitivity debuff, which is obviously fantastic. Now, her A2 skill is one that we definitely want to turn off for clan boss. It will not be used on auto for clan boss because it's going to give us a turn meter boost, which is just kind of random and not something we can predict unless we know exactly how many debuffs we're going to have on all the time. It's not even in the calculator because of that. So definitely would not use her A2. You want to make sure you don't have that on because it will mess up your speed tune. But her A1, her A3, she can absolutely fill up a poison debuff bar all by herself. On top of that, she's got a solid base defense, solid base speed, very useful for clan boss. Only negative, she does not do good raw damage, so you don't really even have to worry about building up her crit damage at all or her crit rate. I mean, it always helps, but it's not really going to be a thing. Really, we just use her for poisons. And the next champion on this list is Urogrim, and Urogrim is absolutely fantastic for clan boss and really good as a poisoner. It's kind of hard to say Urogrim is a solo poisoner for your team, as he's a little bit inconsistent with the debuffs, but in the totality, he's going to be placing a ton of them for you. And it starts with this A3 that places 2 poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. Now, this is on a 4-turn cooldown, and that is probably one of the negatives about him. It's a little bit harder to tune as a result, but he also gives you some continuous heals, which can help your team stay alive, and which is another part with his A2 skill, which is a full cleanse and heal for your team, books down to a 3-turn cooldown. So he does bring a lot of utility to your team, but of course, that was only 2 poisons, and the reason why he makes this list is his A1 as well, which gives you, when booked, is going to give you like a 45% chance of placing a poison on a 2-hit attack. So it's very similar to a champion like Steel Skull, but with a higher chance to land them. This is a very good ability here. So especially if you have counterattack where you're getting more of those A1 skills than you would otherwise, there's a really good chance of being able to fill a debuff bar just with Urogrim himself. You get some consistency with that A3, and a little inconsistency, but a chance to really stack them on with that A1 skill, make him a very good poisoner for Clan Boss, and because of his utility and the healing ability, can be good in traditional teams as well. Doesn't do a lot of raw damage, so I would not build him with good crit rate or crit damage, but definitely going to be good for building poisons up on the boss. In addition to that, he also has a speed aura of 20%. That's pretty massive as far as being able to make the speeds for your team, and so overall can be really, really useful, especially in newer accounts. Now, these top 3 champions, these top 3 poisoners, I think are absolutely insane for the job they do. And we're going to start off here with Nethril. Nethril is phenomenal as a champion, as a poisoner, and it really all comes down to his A1 skill. It's a triple hit attack, each one with a 50% chance of placing a poison debuff. That's massive. If you put him with counterattack, he will absolutely fill up your debuff bar. He will probably overfill your debuff bar all by himself. And the thing is, you don't need any of his other skills. His A2 does nothing for Clan Boss. His A3 does nothing for Clan Boss. They can hit decently hard, so it's not like he can't do raw damage, but really all we want is his A1. So I would generally disable everything else, put him in Giant Slayer, and let him wreck shop. The one thing you actually have to be careful of is him overfilling the debuff bar. But he's an absolutely insanely good poisoner for Clan Boss, one of the best in the game, arguably the best. Now, the champion I would actually argue is the best is Occult Brawler. He makes number 2 on my list, but boy, is this one of the best poison champions in this game. And it comes down to his entire kit, just works perfectly for it. Not only does he have a 50% chance on his A1, books up to 60% chance of actually placing a poison debuff, which is strong. That's a very strong thing. But it really comes down to his passive ability, where basically at the start of every single one of his turns, has a 70% chance of placing a poison debuff, and it's for a 4-turn duration. So those poisons stay for a long time. Because of that, it's very easy to fill up a Clan Boss debuff bar just with Occult Brawler. Even without counterattack, he's exceptionally good at this, and I think gets slept on a lot. On top of that, you know, he does pretty solid raw damage if you build crit rate and crit damage on him, and good attack. I think it's attack. Yeah, good attack on him that he uses for his skill. It's a very nice champion for Clan Boss with a lot of base HP, so he can be survivable on traditional teams as well. His A2 skill is pretty solid, but a lot of times we end up turning that off as it's not really doing the things that we need. It's got some interesting stuff. It can mess up some of your Clan Boss teams if you do get that extra attack, so you have to be a little bit careful with it. A lot of times we don't, or we want to fully book that for Clan Boss, you know, gotta be careful with it because of the way that it works. But he can be exceptionally good poison champion for you, really one of the best in this game. And then we get to the number 1 champion I have on my list, and like I said, these top 3, I could easily see each one of them being in a different spot, but I have Xayah as the top poison champion in this game. Now, her poison chance is actually a little bit less than Nethril's, but I think the difference here is she does more raw damage, so she's just a better poisoner in general. But, you know, this A1, another triple hit attack, each one with a 40% chance of placing that poison debuff. It's a really strong ability. And honestly, if I were going to run her, I might just use that skill by itself. But she does have another more easily landable poison skill, and that's her A2 ability here, which books up to a 75% chance of landing 2 poison debuffs. So between the 2 of those skills, she's incredibly good. This is still a double hit attack, so Giant Slayer is going to be an excellent choice on her, regardless of whether you use this skill or not. But she can absolutely fill up a debuff bar by herself. Now, For Clan Boss, you're going to want to turn off her A3 skill. The one thing you don't want to do is explode those poisons. It's not going to be great for Clan Boss. It only counts as one tick, even though it's wiping all the poisons off. So that's definitely something you're going to want to take off. It also deals half the damage against the boss. So definitely not going to want to use that. But all the other skills are really, really good for and somebody I would definitely consider bringing in, on top of the fact she has an amazing attack aura, 33% in all battles. So she is, in my opinion, the top. So hopefully that list satisfies some of you out there that weren't happy with my previous one. These are all amazing champions and really great for your teams. And when you're building unkillable teams, bringing a traditional poisoner in like this, a pure poisoner, can be really, really good choice for your team. For most, I would say for a lot of Clan Boss teams though, you do want to try to bring in more stuff to the table if you can, but you know, you don't always need to, especially with unkillable teams where really all you need is decreased defense, weaken, and then poisons and raw damage. Some of these champions can be even better options than the ones I had in my previous list. So hopefully this, you know, is something you guys can agree with. Now, if you think there's somebody I left off this list, go ahead, let me know down below. I do want to hear that from you guys. And the truth of the matter is, I miss people sometimes. Sometimes I get things wrong. It happens. And so giving me some feedback on somebody I might have missed, or if you think some of the order is wrong, I'd love to hear that as well. Perhaps you think, you know, Kale is even better than I laid out there, or maybe Richtof the Bold is, you know, more amazing than I gave credit to. You can go ahead and let me know that as well. I do like to read those comments from time to time. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you stopping by watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.